Hadoop. What is Hadoop? Hadoop is a bunch of tools. Hadoop is a software platform. What Hadoop does? So what Hadoop helps us in running the MapReduce applications, or Hadoop helps us, or Hadoop makes it easy to process the big data. So Hadoop is a Java-based free platform, open source. Anybody can download Hadoop and install Hadoop. Once you install Hadoop, your MapReduce programming, your network computing, distributed computing becomes very easy using Hadoop. What Hadoop does? As soon as you install Hadoop, you can simply say what are your machines. Hadoop will create the cluster for you. You just need to mention the machine IP addresses, somehow configure the cluster, so Hadoop will take care of that. All that you need to mention to Hadoop is you move the data, local data, into Hadoop file system. It is called as Hadoop distributed file system. Once you move the data into Hadoop distributed file system, Hadoop will take care of everything. Then you have to give map function, reduce function, then Hadoop will take care of all the fault tolerance, everything. It will calculate and finally give you the result. We don't need to write the additional scripts. Maybe somebody has already written all these additional scripts, optimized them, and created a platform called Hadoop. So Hadoop takes care of many difficult tasks that we just discussed to implement a MapReduce. Hadoop will take care of data distribution. You just need to mention where is the data, or you need to move the data into Hadoop distributed file system. Hadoop takes care of assigning the master node, assigning the slave nodes from the cluster. Hadoop takes care of the cluster management, job scheduling, if what job need to be run on what node. Hadoop takes care of data replication also. What is data replication? You divide the data into smaller pieces, and as well as for each piece you create a copy of that, so that later on if there is any issue on one of the machines, because since this is network computing, not all machines are expected to be as efficient as others. There can be smaller issues. So if one of the piece of the data is corrupted, or if there is any problem, we want to make sure that we don't lose out on the whole calculation that is or whole the operation that is happened till then. So we want a replication. So each piece of the data will be replicated twice or thrice. Hadoop will take care of data replication. Hadoop will take care of load balancing. In fact, many other things that you can't even imagine in a distributed computing environment or in a MapReduce programming environment. Hadoop is not big data. Hadoop is not big data. Big data definition, you know it, right? Any data set that is difficult to handle using conventional tools is called big data. Hadoop is not a synonym of big data. Hadoop is a platform, a software platform that makes it easy to do MapReduce programming or distributed computing. Hadoop is not a database. It's not like any other SQL database or anything like that. Hadoop is not a database. Hadoop is a platform. Hadoop is a framework. It will allow us to quickly run the MapReduce programs, or to test the distributed systems. It will automatically distribute the data. It will help us in running the MapReduce codes. Hadoop is a software program that will help us to run MapReduce programs. Hadoop is a simple but beautiful tool to run MapReduce programs. So what does Hadoop do? It can reliably store and process the data, huge data sets, even petabytes of data. Hadoop can store and run it. How it does, we are going to see that later. Once you connect all the machines to Hadoop, or once you tell where all the machines are, Hadoop will automatically see that as a coherent system. Once you say where the data set is, or once you move the data into Hadoop distributed file system, Hadoop will individually distribute these data, petabytes of data. It will cut it into smaller pieces and then distribute it onto the systems in the cluster. In fact, in the commonly available computers, whatever we have, the distributed computers, as soon as you move the data into HDFS, so in Hadoop there is one file system called Hadoop distributed file system. So in Windows we have Windows file system, in Linux we have Linux file system. In Windows file system, a file looks like if it is a 10 GB file, it will look like one single 10 GB file. Whereas in Hadoop distributed file system, the dataset look like all are small pieces only. The maximum size of the dataset in Hadoop distributed file system is 64 MB or 128 MB. You can decide the piece size while configuring. Let's say every piece in Hadoop is 128 MB. That's it. If you push 200 or 240 or 1 GB dataset onto Hadoop distributed file system, that 1 GB dataset is in your Windows file system, which is 1 GB. If you move it onto Hadoop, it will be cut into smaller pieces. Each piece will be 128 MB, 128 MB, 128 MB. Maybe you will have finally 10 pieces of the data. If you move 1 GB file, you will have 9 or 10 pieces out of that. If you move 2 GB file, you will have some 20 pieces of the data. That is how it will appear in Hadoop distributed file system. It will do automatically. As soon as you move the data, it will be cut into smaller pieces. Each piece size can be either 64 MB or 128 MB. It depends on how we configure. For now, you take it as every file that is there on Hadoop distributed file system is just 128 MB each. By distributing the data, Hadoop can now parallelly process any operation that you give. It will run the operation, it will run the map on that 128 MB piece parallelly, because on the first piece, if you are calculating something, second piece will be anyway free. You can also calculate parallelly, so map will be run parallelly. Finally, you calculate the reduce. Hadoop will automatically maintain multiple copies of the data. As soon as Hadoop divides the data in HDFS, it has some beautiful properties. One of that is you break every data set into 128 MB size pieces, as well as within HDFS there is one more property. It will do replication. Each piece will be kept into 2-3 copies, and all these 2-3 copies of the pieces will not be stored in single node. They will be stored in different nodes, so that if one of the machines switches off, you can fetch the data from a different node, the same piece. So that is what Hadoop properties are. Now Hadoop has some major components, so we will see that in detail. What are the major components of Hadoop?